The Stone Age Psy-Op. Another lecture by, who am I? The prophet of fiction, the master of mindness. Call me what you like, and only what you like. Well, let's begin with the preliminary facts. Um, we are controlled by a ruling class that has enormous resources, numbers, and skills. They are the millions, I stress millions, of aristocrats who went undercover during the 1800s. So now almost no one realizes they work among us. Many are engaged entirely in deceiving us about their true identity and past, and about our true identity and past. These facts should help us understand the enormous scale of the lies and fake artifacts our enemies created to keep us ignorant and easy to control, stuck in the system they created for us. Now, my thesis for today's lecture. The first prehistoric humans were not Stone Age hunter-gatherers, but were food forest gardeners. The Stone Age lie was created and disseminated in order to prevent us from living outside of the system that makes us dependent on the creators and controllers of technology, money, and government. Well, let's have a look at what we are told about Stone Age peoples. Let me fix this share. There we go. The birth of civilization. Stone Age man. There he is. Lovely relative, supposedly. They relied on tools made of stone, bone, and wood. I say, okay, technology. For 2.5 million years. Yes, for nearly that entire time, they were not able to evolve or innovate, discover metallurgy, agriculture. No, it took 2.5 million years. Walking around chasing meat, looking for scant edible plants. But they mastered fire, and they had to, of course they did. Once you leave tropical, semi-tropical forests, you will face cold nights, cold winters, sometimes both. And not many people like eating their meat raw, so yes, fire was a necessity, if all that's true. Here's an image of a abandoned Stone Age settlement. We are expected to believe that our ancestors needed boxes and semicircles to live in. And we are expected to believe that this is an authentic prehistoric settlement whose walls just miraculously deteriorated down to the same height, nearly all of them. And I suppose they would have built their roofs with wooden beams, Um, how would you build them? With what? Stone axes? Hand stone axes? Like this? Good luck. I was told once that the Iroquois built or cut the wood for their log houses with the jaws of moose, with moose jaws. Right. Um, all highly doubtful. And well, we'll get to the mammoth. That's wonderful children's story. The mammoth. We'll get there in a moment. Bear with me. Um, so I presented my thesis. We were for food forest gardeners. Supporting point one. Well, presently we suffer from an irrational technology bias. We are told over and over that our talent for creating technologies is the supreme proof of our superior intelligence. I have mocked technology worshippers on my Sunday Fakeology show. I won't repeat those little mockeries here. For the moment, I'll go further actually and state that farming and gardening manifest an even greater intelligence. While other animals use simple tools, no other animals deliberately plant seeds and seedlings. Why? Because gardening requires long-term foresight, not short-term vision. A new weapon can kill an animal the same day. A newly planted seed from a fruit tree won't produce food for months or years. But when it does, it produces for many years. And the collecting is pleasant. Supporting point two, forest gardening in tropical climates offer superior convenience and stability. The temperatures are ideal, and trees provide fruit very reliably with little effort from us. In contrast, hunting and gathering in temperate zones or subarctic zones, if you dare, during winter seasons can exhaust and kill. Supporting point three. Stone Age people supposedly hunted mammoth. However, mammoth, like dinosaurs, are a hoax, of course. All their supposed bones were discovered by white men, mostly in the 1700s. Yeah, 1700s. And it continues. Yes, somehow, for thousands of years, native people did not notice mammoth and dinosaur bones. Nope. They were too busy, what, beating their drums? Here are some other problems with the mammoth narrative. Mammoths are browsers dependent on deciduous trees. The subarctic is primarily coniferous. No other mammal in the subarctic region is primarily a browser. And besides, coniferous trees are not digested by any other mammal. Therefore, mammoths did not exist. Mammoths are not suited for climbing, but experts claim they populated the rugged Rockies. Well, there's a reason elephants live on flat savannas. They're not built for any other place, and mammoths are basically just hairy elephants, aren't they? Why did mammoths become extinct, but not elk and moose? If Stone Age humans hunted mammoth to extinction, Why didn't they hunt elephants to extinction? No, they're still wandering happily about. Well, the few that are left. Number 4, severe climate change is also blamed for the extinction of mammoths. As if a warming climate would be bad for species that lived before and during the previous ice age. I mean, the extinction is allegedly occurred after the ice age. So yeah, they survived the ice age, but somehow could not survive the warming climate that would have freed much of their uh, range of ice and glaciers, if you believe in ice ages. I don't. It's part of the scary nature psy-op. Got to keep us civilized and away from nature. Let's have a look at some other info about mammoth. Maybe there isn't a plural form. Never an S on mammoth. Um, some silly stuff they tell us, you know. According to American Heritage Dictionary, the word mammoth likely originates from Mano, whatever, a word in the Mansi language of Western Siberia meaning earth horn, in reference to mammoth tusks. Mammoths appear in the folklore of Siberian indigenous people who were impressed, of course they were, by the great size of their bones. In the mythology of the Evenk people, mammoths were responsible for the creation of the world, digging up the land from the ocean floor with their tusks. Suddenly, mammoths became marine mammals and pig-like. I mean, pigs dig up the earth, or boars dig up the earth with their tusks. What a confusion of ideas, but it's the creativity of our masters at work. Another native group believed that mammoths lived underground and guarded the underworld. Why do natives believe in some kind of underworld? Yeah, it's because the creators of these myths had created an underworld, a subterranean prison farm world for humans on every habitable continent. Even crazier, the Nenets and the Mansi believed the mammoths were responsible for the creation of mountains and lakes. And the Mansi imagined mammoths were really giant birds. Yeah, okay, all right. Our ancestors were either extremely stupid or not in control of their imagination. That sounds like the same thing. The earliest scientific research paper on mammoths was by Vasily Tachichev in 1725. Who is Vasily? Oh, he's looks like an aristocrat. Doesn't look particularly Russian there, but well, they're all Europeans. John Bell testified that testified that mammoth tusks were all around Siberia. What do you? And who is John Bell? Of course, he's not even Russian. Scottish medical doctor. who had time and money to travel. Maybe never existed. And another gentleman named Hans Sloane, another aristocrat. It's never the farmers, the trappers, the woodcutters. Somehow it's all these, yeah, devious people. Well, they're making money off the lie. Of course, they always do. Movies about mammoths, books about mammoth hunters. And I think there is, what's it called? The Ice Age series of animated nonsense. Mammoths supposedly lived as far north as Wrangel Island. It's in the Arctic Ocean. Well, pray tell, what would they eat there? If this photo is any indication, they would eat nothing. They would be breatharians, of course. And this is the land occupied by, supposedly once inhabited by mammoth. Yes, those Rocky Mountains were very suitable for those creatures, and coniferous forest all throughout Siberia. That was just one big restaurant for them. Yeah. Subarctic trees, short growing seasons. Well, there are some deciduous trees, admittedly in subarctic regions, but they don't have leaves during the winter. Here's evidence of a supposed evidence of a, I think this is considered a juvenile mammoth. Well, it looks like an elephant to me. Proves nothing. They couldn't even find some hair in all the ice. We'll get to the rock art cave paintings in a moment. The Ice Age hoax is part of the larger nature is dangerous psy-op. Imaginary meteors, world floods, etc. It all paints the picture of nature is dangerous. And how many people are there now? We've been urbanized so much that, well, each new generation has become less comfortable and knowledgeable of nature. Won't be easy going back. Moreover, the theory that Earth is hundreds of millions of years old, I believe, is disproven by soil depth around the world. Um, if giant glaciers scrub the soil off the subarctic and off much of the temperate zone, where are the giant topsoil and clay deposits that must measure hundreds of meters deep? Nowhere. They're nowhere to be found. In fact, we can dismiss the entire field of paleontology on the basis of soil depth. You see, according to paleontologists, forests began covering North America almost 400 million years ago. And forests produce 1 centimeter of soil per 2 or 3 centuries. Now, I will assume forests covered North America 300 million years ago, and that 1 centimeter of soil requires a full 3 centuries. So I am sure that number is much too high. Now I divide 300 million years of time of forested time by 300 years necessary to produce 1 centimeter of soil. That gives me the number 1 million. 1 million centimeters of soil would accumulate during 300 million years. And that amounts to 10,000 meters, which means 10 kilometers of topsoil accumulation over 300 million years. But I beg you, where is that topsoil? It doesn't exist. Why not? Because paleontology is another hoax. And because this Earth is much younger than the billions of years paleontologists throw around. Similarly, the sun is much closer, I believe, than the, is it millions of miles astronomers throw around? Supporting point 5, the cave art and mound builder hoaxes, all discovered by white men and children, mostly in the 1800s. At the same time, they discovered all the dinosaur bones. Yes, because somehow, over thousands of years, natives just never noticed dinosaur bones, mammoth bones, cave paintings. No, it takes white European aristocrats. They have the eye. You know the eye I mean. Supporting point 6, the migration hoax. The human migration theory assumes tribes chose to move north and live in less hospitable places, and chose to live in igloos, and chose to rear children in harsh winters and feeble teepees. How did the tribes move these large teepees? Oh yeah, there's a nice, I'm missing, where are you? The Kenai people again. Let's have a look. The Kenai Nation of Alberta, Canada, also known as the Blood Tribe. Again, I've spoken about them in the Indigenous People Psy-Op. Are these black faces? I don't know. Honestly, I look as, or they look as little like me as my paternal uncles look like me. This is a very minor difference. Very minor. Somehow, many thousands of years, maybe millions, didn't create much difference between these people and Europeans. Skin tone, yes, perhaps. Although they presumably spent all their time outdoors, they look perfectly European to me. Why are they all posing? And that is the question for this little tour. Maybe this is the one photo where they don't quite seem to be posing, but they're all doing nothing. All doing nothing. Oh, maybe this is a sun dance of some sort. Or are they doing the choo-choo train? Nice pose. Nice pose. They seem to have a lot of chiefs and no juveniles. Very few children about. Why is that? Another nice group photo. All the well-shaven men. Yeah, this family doesn't quite look European. Another nice group photo. Lovely teepee there. A horse. These are from the early 1900s, late 1800s. Nice pose, nice pose, nice pose. And I wonder, how did they move all these teepees about before they had horses from the Europeans, presumably? These are not very small. They wouldn't be fun to drag around across the prairies in the winter. Yeah, I think you get my point. Well, back to eventually we'll get to the cave paintings. I just mentioned, yes, that they were all magically discovered by white Europeans. Uh, and well, how difficult would it be for a secretive ruling cult with airships and plenty of tech to go around the world and paint and etch a few pictures on cliff walls and inside caves to create the impression that our ancestors were, well, budding artists living in deserts and canyons, places where food doesn't grow or live. Yeah, it would be pretty easy for them to pull off that stunt. And somehow we fell for it. Um, yeah, here is Barrier Canyon. Apparently, this is where this famous rock art exists. It is the rock art that presents the most anthropomorphic figures. Usually, cave art, rock art is focused on symbols and dominated by animals, prey, I should say. But yeah, somehow a tribe or a lonely, bored man decided to walk through this region, magically feeding himself, and found a cave where he decided to paint humans that look a little alien-like. Makes perfect sense. We'll get to the Minnesota Iceman in a moment. Supporting point 7, historians recognize that humans bred annual crops and animals to begin agriculture, which marks the end of the Stone Age. But what about fruit? Were jackfruit and papayas, for example, not bred to their present size and sweetness by early humans? Seems like humans would be more motivated to breed large edible foods, such as jackfruit and papayas, than they would be motivated to breed rice and wheat, even more than they would be motivated to breed goats and cows. Supporting point 8, too much fakery is evident in the photos they give us. Okay, we do have some. My thesis faces some challenges, perhaps. Challenge 1, The scale of the lies and hoaxes seems impossible. Well, of course, I've already explained why it is perfectly possible. The world culture corruptors had and have more than enough human and technical resources necessary to achieve this global deception operation. Problem two, why did they want to create the illusion that temperate, semi-desert, subarctic regions were voluntarily populated by humans thousands of years ago? Well, consider their anti-independence agenda. They don't want us living in places where we can become independent from their technologies and money. The technologies and money they control. And now they control all the corporations, the food, utilities. I've been seeing more videos about Americans going out of their minds because of food and electricity bills, rental bills, home prices, and pathetic wages. Problem three, how did the world culture corruptors, the world controllers, populate lands with new tribes about 200 years ago? I think their massive worldwide human farming operation turned into a human transplant operation. That was part of the reset of, well, it spanned some time between, let's put it between 1776 and 1901. The WCC's massive worldwide, okay. The orphan trains are just a small part of that human transplant operation. Because native peoples, and that includes many Europeans, are products of subterranean human farming. Those humans had no knowledge of how to live as forest gardeners. This explains why native peoples, why they, the artificially created native peoples of the temperate and subarctic climates, are generally unable to live their alleged traditional independent lifestyles, even if they have plenty of land, and even if they received that land 140 years ago, as the Blood tribe received their enormous reservation of 650 square miles in Alberta, Canada. Almost universally, they are unable to care for themselves. And I propose that that's not because they don't have land, they do have land, or somehow their knowledge was erased. It doesn't take much knowledge to produce your own food and build your own house. And they can just go on YouTube now. No, the reason they are unable to care for themselves is because they never did. They are the byproducts of subterranean human farming and a massive global human transplant operation. They were planted here and there, given their traditions, traditions they did not understand. And so here we are, with plenty of native people who don't know how to care for themselves. And well, that doesn't make them unique. We don't know how to care for ourselves either. Not really, though we do have still some jobs. but they don't really count. That just makes us dependent on our rulers. Concluding insights. My work exposes the fact that the technology masters are insane people. They hunted and ate entire species into extinction. They are farming humans, and they are cannibals and adrenochrome addicts. This, I propose, is the logical outcome of devoting your mind and life to technological development. Technology is fundamentally anti-nature, and at least a failure or refusal to live within the limits set by nature for humans. Limits beyond which a leisurely, peaceful, sustainable life becomes impossible. Allow me to explain. Because we didn't respect the fact that nature intended us to live where we can eat fresh plant-based food year-round, we became dependent on nuts and meat during winter seasons. Hunting especially made us dependent on weapons and tools. And contrary to popular opinion, once we started treating formerly sacred or friendly animals as sources of meat and depleted their population, it was only a small step to treating other tribes as sources of meat. Secondly, because we didn't respect the fact that nature intended us to live where our naked bodies are comfortable all year, we became dependent on skinning animals for their fur, turning plant fibers painstakingly into thread, and making clothing. Clothing, or textiles, is a technology. By migrating into inhospitable climates, we also became dependent on firewood, and the tools required to cut wood. Shelters also became more complicated. All this motivated and drove the technology drive, the need for more and more technology. Well, perhaps because fruit ceased to be our year-round staple, and because life became more stressful outside of the tropics and semi-tropics, our physical and mental health declined, making us more concerned about being mortals, more religious, than more likely to seek solutions with or methods by which we can exceed the limits nature set upon us. Or perhaps the mode of thinking required to become technological creatures is one that assumes every natural limit can be broken by technological innovations. So, the natural limit of a human lifespan represented the greatest challenge to the technological mind. And it discovered that injections of blood from human children can extend youthfulness and delay death for adults. So there you go. Technology came to the rescue, but not for the children. Ironic conclusion. Well, one irony, I suppose, is that we would probably be just as healthy and live just as long if we had healthy diets and lived without the stress of this nutty, crazy world we've or they created for us. Here's an ironic conclusion regarding the Stone Age. In fact, we live in the Stone Age. A modern city is a pile of stone. Glass is made from stone. Iron and copper are extracted from stone. All metals and rare earth minerals are extracted from stone. Computer chips are essentially stone products. Petroleum is extracted from stone, and all plastics and synthetics are created from petroleum. Petroleum means oil from stone. Even fertilizers used for farming are synthesized from petroleum. We absolutely live in the Stone Age, and perhaps the Stoned Age. And I conclude with a little prophecy. Did I miss anything? Oh, yes, that's before the prophecy. Can't resist this. Where is that? Minnesota Iceman. Was a sideshow exhibit, an elaborate hoax that depicted a fake man-like creature frozen in a block of ice. It was displayed at shopping malls, state fairs, and carnivals in the US and Canada in the 1960s and 70s. It was promoted as the missing link between Homo sapiens and Neanderthals. Unfortunately, Wikipedia did not have a photo, but yeah, a hominid ape man, so-called Iceman of Minnesota. And so that was in the 60s. And what happened in the 1990s? Was it the 1990s? Yes, it was. In 1991, magically, another Iceman appears. The Similan man, or Tyrolean Iceman. But this one, of course, this one is authentic. Yeah, discovered in the Alps, not in some US mall. No, in the Alps. In ice, frozen in ice, like a baby mammoth. Magically preserved, mummified. Um, well, they're just laughing at us. They give us the obvious hoax and then name him the Minnesota Iceman. And 30 years later or less, they give us another Iceman and ask us to believe it. Yeah. Some interesting facts, something about his stomach. Apparently, he had some good food in him 8 hours before he somehow got himself stuck in a glacier. Yeah, they found traces of protein. His last meal was composed of fat and meat from an ibex, some kind of ram, and red deer, as well as he had some wheat in him. Of course, wheat. That's what you grow in the Alps, wheat. Um, anyway, enough of these hoaxes. I think that's it for today. I have just one little conclusion, a prophecy to share. Yeah. I foresee a time when we devote our lives to life, not to stone and the Stone Age we currently live in. A time when we devote ourselves to living nature, to being a good keystone species, a species that increases Earth's biomass and biodiversity, a species that knows how to be and happy and peaceful, enjoy lots of leisure and good health. The time will come, as unbelievable as it may seem. Well, maybe I'm too hopeful. Yes. No, we'll get there. I feel like I'm halfway there already. So, oh yes, I must share my contact. I am still revising one of my 6 books, but these books are already so much better than anything else out there. maybe they don't require any improvements at all, no. But I am a perfectionist. I have been accused of that. I am working on, where is that first one? I guess it's the first one, Holy Spells. These books have been um, written simultaneously over a 20-year period. And alas, this last year, over the last year, I've had so many discoveries that yeah, it hasn't been easy updating, but they are mostly updated and ready to go. I am selling them as PDFs, but I'm also able to send them to be printed by Lulu, who will ship them from their nearest printing office to whoever wants them. Well, enough. More later, and peace and happiness and health to all.